let's go ahead and get this kicked off. Well, welcome once again. Thank you all for joining us for our webinar series where we bring industry experts to give us invaluable insights and wisdom on various topics related to real estate investing. My name is Sohail Hassan, and I'm the co-founder and managing partner of MarketSpace Capital, a private equity real estate development company headquartered out of Houston, Texas. And I am, of course, joined by my fellow co-host and the honorable chairman of MarketSpace Capital, Dr. Masaki Oishi, affectionately, of course, known to us all as Moss.
Thank you, Sohail. And it is my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Moss. We also have the pleasure of hosting a very good friend of mine. He's the founder and CEO of CIVE, a Houston-based engineering-driven design-build firm serving residential, commercial, and industrial markets through its headquarters in the United States and infrastructure construction sector in Doha, Qatar. Their expert design is the foundation that allows their clients' ideas to take roots. Their commitment to excellence brings the project to life. And of course, their commitment to value engineering is what makes it thrive. Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Hashim Domloj.
Thank you very much, Sohail, for that nice introduction. It's my pleasure to be on this webinar.
Of course, Hashim, thank you. And CIV is a company that I've personally done business with in the past, and MarketSpace Capital has engaged for some of our upcoming projects. And as everyone knows, maintaining a healthy housing market is a matter of effectively balancing supply and demand, requiring a construction industry that builds enough new housing to keep pace with the demand that's created by economic, demographic, and migration factors. The residential construction sector of the economy has lagged in recent years, with construction of new homes remaining at depressed levels in the face of increased costs of land, labor, and of course, materials. In fact, in 1993, multifamily only accounted for just 7% of new residential construction spending, but that share has increased to more than 2.5 times to 18% in 2017. This increase is partially attributable to the nation's growing pool of renters, which, believe it or not, due to COVID, has just gotten larger. Between 2005 and 2016, 91% of all newly formed households were actually renters, and renters currently occupy 87% of the units in multifamily properties. To better understand the trends in multifamily construction, as well as mitigating risk during development, we, of course, invited an industry expert to share his experiences in ground-up developments, as well as how they're able to maintain competitive pricing even during uncertain times. We'll take a deeper dive into previous projects that CIVE has done and understand the fundamentals of maximizing returns for investors. It is for this reason that we felt it would be crucial for our investors to hear from a multifamily construction expert on some of the trends and insights that are going on within the space.
Well, thank you, Sohail. Yeah, as many of you may already know, MarketSpace Capital's bread and butter has been value-add projects in the past. However, over the past couple of years, these type of projects, especially B-class assets, have become a hot commodity and have also become a crowded space in terms of investments filled with a lot of inexperienced sponsors. So as a result, we've seen cap rates become compressed and deals have become less lucrative unless you know what to look for and where. Now, we are still acquiring value adds, but we are also focused on assets that are either those that are overlooked by a lot of sponsors or maybe something that most sponsors are too experienced to take on. As MarketSpace Capital is a data-driven company, we use this macro trend to get into ground development projects. We saw that it's a much less crowded space when it comes to ground-up development due to some of the complexity of these investments. This also means higher investment returns for ourselves and for our investors. As young developers, however, we really do need to surround ourselves with people who have the experience and who have the know-how to make these projects happen. I would say that this is why we partner with firms like CIV. Of course, before we get started, I want to remind everyone that we will have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. If you have any questions that come up during the presentation, we will be happy to read those questions at the end, and we will try our best to get to every question that is asked. But with that, I'll turn it over to Hashim to give a brief introduction of himself and of his wonderful firm. Hashim?
Thank you, Dr. Moss, and then also thank you, Sohail. Thank you both for the oversight that you guys gave us about the multifamily market. I prepared a small presentation to discuss the ground up, basically construction process and challenges that we face in multifamily construction and development. Do you guys see my screen? I have shared.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. So, okay, now I have some difficulties. There you go. Okay, so first of all, let me just give you a brief introduction. I know, Suhail, thank you for the introduction. For myself. My name is Hashim Damloj, and I'm the founder and owner of CIVE. CIVE stands for Civil Engineering, and this is our root in everything that we do. We would like to bring engineering into construction. Our team in here is basically a group of engineers and architects that they put all their efforts in design and implementing design via the construction and in a way to increase the rate of return for our developers. The main thing in our business is that we strive with is basically value engineering and how we apply it in different type of projects to make it successful for our clients and developers. CIV is not only just a construction company. We offer architectural engineering and then basically full design build type of project delivery. This is in brief of who we are and what we do, and I'll go back right now to the presentation that I prepared. I'm going to give a 5-year recap. I know, Sohail, you already did a recap. Dr. Moss, you did that as well. But in a brief, for the last 5 years, the investment presented for the multifamily investment presented superior opportunities than any other commercial real estate. That multifamily been very or attracted a lot of developers throughout the nation because of the rate of return and because of the change of like the fast changing of demographics of different cities and basically people migrating and how things are changing between one city and another. And the strong economic growth and very low unemployment drove that demand. We had a good economy in the last few years, especially in here in Texas. Oil prices were at high. A lot of people started moving into Houston. That change in basically the migration to the state of Texas in general drove the development of a lot of multifamily projects. And then also the government helping with the government spending and the tax brackets that they have implemented in the last 5 years pushed a lot of investment or basically encouraged a lot of investors to put money in the market and drive this economy forward. Nearly 1.1 million multifamily units became available since 2016. And the multifamily development presents a lower volatility during unpredictable market conditions. Market is good. People are moving for jobs. They want to rent. Market is not doing well. People want to rent. They cannot afford homes, and then so on. And then also the decline in cap rates, which basically increased some of the investors' equity. So that this whole thing is basically was a really positive drive for in the last 5 years for the multifamily investors.
Sure. And just to add to that, Hashim, from a economic perspective, in terms of the dollars that are being spent, the spending on multifamily construction had total right over 61 billion in 2017, which is nearly 4 times the amount that was spent in the post-recession through all of 2010. So we can see that multifamily is increasingly making up a larger share of all the new construction spending. And some of the reasons is because of what you mentioned just now.
Sure. We have also in the recap, to add to what you said, there's 400 billion loan origination, which was up by 5.7% in 2020, just alone. We're talking about construction and economy in general. So that $61 billion probably is part of that $400 billion loan originated in those last 5 years. And loan interest rates increased. Low interest rate is what increased the capital supply side. So the low interest rate pushed people to basically invest more, since basically when the interest rate goes down, that encourages investors to take their money and put it in the market, invest in real estate rather than sitting on it in the bank. Now, on the market inside, you have third of the renting household. Like this is the millennials generation. This is what we basically were trying to accommodate now. It's basically this new generation, which third of those renting households do not include home ownership in their American dream anymore. And then 1/5 of the renting households will never buy a house in their life. So people are more like the new trend is basically to go rent. They don't want to have the homeowner the responsibilities that comes with owning a house. And then also there's a rise in the rent, and then there's basically shortage in the property supply. So that's what's driving also, or this is really good for multifamily investors. I'm gonna now go from that study to basically more focus into the construction, which is mainly my area here of expertise. And we're gonna discuss the challenges in the ground up multifamily construction that mainly between the 2020 and 2021, which what we are facing right now. As you mentioned before, we have a lot of challenges, mainly in the increasing material prices in general. Also in specific, they basically, in addition to lumber that everybody knows about, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. All these three divisions of any kind of construction projects, they are essential in all construction. They are existing in all construction projects. And these three divisions, they have encountered a lot of material increase that nobody's talking about. Everybody's like discussing, okay, cement, they're talking about lumber, talking about steel, but kind of like the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing divisions of the construction side has been left out. But there's a lot of prices increase almost across the board on all material types. And we're going to discuss also contract deliveries. There's different type of contract deliveries. If I just name few, if you guys are not familiar with it, you have design build contracts, you have design build bid, and then build contracts, and then other type of contracts that we will discuss also during this presentation. And then also the other challenge is labor shortage. We have encountered a lot of labor shortage lately for multiple reasons. Maybe related to the pandemic. Some people do not feel comfortable to go to work. Unfortunately, our sector does not allow us to work from home. I cannot build a multifamily project sitting behind my computer. Neither a framer can do that. So we faced a lot of that was a big actually problem during the pandemic, and then basically we're still in that pandemic right now, and so we have a lot of shortage in labor. Let me talk about material prices. I prepared a little graph, just an illustration, so you guys can see how the material price has been fluctuating, and then between January 2020 and then April of 2021. In blue, you have this. You can see how the material prices were fluctuating per construction division between January 2020 and December 2020. And in that trend for like every division kept on going with material increase in 2021. For example, if we go to wood, plastic, and basically composite materials, this wood, the lumber material, uh, we are near 250% on price increase for just lumber by itself. If we go to, uh, uh, let's say, plumbing, the last line right here, we are at 39% price increase in plumbing. Steel, we have seen also 77% price increase. And basically throughout all the divisions, and it's not basically what only people are focusing on right now. Is lumber is going crazy, lumber is going crazy. Actually, everything else is going crazy as well. So that created a challenge, uh, basically in the entire construction industry, not only in multifamily. And this is where we like to come in and deal with these challenges and see what is the best way to design to mitigate that cost increase from uh, basically this and how we can uh, value engineer the product and then minimize the effect of that price increase on this project.
Ashim, can I ask a quick question? Do you think that the increase in prices is more supply or more a demand problem?
It's a supply and demand problem, actually. And then we've been in contact, we are always in contact with the big suppliers and our vendors. Uh, this market is going to keep fluctuating until the end of June, mid of July, and then everybody is saying that they're expecting by the end of July the market is going to start stabling and then it's going to start slowly going down, and this is because of the supply is going to ramp up.
Sure.
So they're going to try to accommodate that demand in the market. So the price is going to start getting stable and then going down. Whether they go down to where they were before, or we're going to go down to a new standard, we don't know.
Okay.
So,
Gosh.
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm saying, you spoke to lumber prices earlier, and I'm sure we've all seen the memes on Facebook and social media of the increased lumber costs and how they're impacting construction projects. In looking at the future prices of lumber, is what you're saying still hold true, and that you see it kind of stabilizing towards the middle to the end of the year?
This is what the big suppliers are expecting. Um my contact is I've been in contact with Idaho Pacific, which they are one of the largest supplier in the market, and then they see the market should start stabilizing like in the end of July, and maybe the prices will get adjusted afterwards. But nobody knows if they're gonna go back to where they were at. Like in January of 2020, we used to buy the 1,000-foot board of lumber for almost near $300. Today is $1,400.
Oh my God.
So it's and that's why, like in the next slides, I'm gonna talk about innovative ways on how can we get around. Like, okay, if the lumber is high, is there other means of construction? This is where us as engineers and architect, what can we bring to the table to uh, kind of like to value engineer and to propose new ways of construction or new material for the construction and the multifamily industry.
Sure. And I think specifically Hashem CIVE has an advantage there in terms of being a design build firm. Can you quickly touch upon the difference between a normal GC as opposed to a firm like yours that has the design build component that's in there?
Sure. I also have a slide to basically the main two kinds of delivery methods, construction delivery methods, are design build or design bid and then build, or they call it design then build. Uh, the main difference is you have one point of contact for this project, one office you deal with, and then you guarantee that, and within this office, the design team is communicating with the construction team. The better coordination between all disciplines of design, whether it's architectural, structural, civil, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, they're much more under control and very well coordinated. And then there's an open channel of communication between the design team and the construction team on site.
What about from a cost perspective?
Cost perspective, there will be a lot of savings because going into the design and then we knowing the construction and how to implement this design, uh, we have the advantage of the know-how on the construction and how to implement this design in the least cost possible. And this is what we call basically value engineering. This is our strength as CIVE, where we go into a project and say, okay, this is the budget that we need to be at, and we need to design, drive our design for this type of budget and these type of projects. We know, like, I have some case studies in my slides, so I can elaborate more and give examples.
Love that. Thank you so much. And from speaking from personal experience, I've also found it's much more efficient in that you have one point of contact. So if there are changes that were required to the design, it's easy to have the architect who's in house be able to make those changes, then have the engineers, the MEP, civil make the necessary adjustments, and then it directly goes to the GC all within one house. So it really kind of makes the project that much more efficient.
Absolutely. And basically, this slides here, I'm talking about the cons of design, bid, build, or basically what are the disadvantages or what kind of challenges you may face in this type of delivery method. So, what design, bid, build is basically you go to one company for the design, and then you bid that project out, and then you hire a contractor separate that basically have no relationship with the design company. There will be a general disconnect between the design and construction contact. So basically, that open channel that I was talking about of communication between office and site is not there. It's kind of broken. Any problems you may face on site, there will be finger pointing. It's the designer, no, it's the contractor. It's so when you have one contract with one company, there's no finger pointing. Uh, you will eliminate the basically the wasting time and redundancy, and then basically budget pressures because uh, when there's issues on site, there's always some time lost, and then that may result in change orders, which cost increase and basically pressure on the budget. One of the challenges also that I talked about was labor shortage, uh, and then a lot of contractors been facing a lot of challenges to find and retain quality subcontractors. Uh, like I said, it could be due to the pandemic, and like this is one of the main reasons for labor shortages. And whatever labor available right now, it's requiring stringent supervision. So it's more pressure on the contractor to hire and keep uh, qualified labor and providing a lot of training and providing a lot of supervision to basically keep that production going. I'm gonna present some case studies, and that's gonna talk about the challenges that we had, and some of these case studies will answer your questions. First project I want to bring into this case study is a five-story development student housing project. It's conveniently located within a commute distance to University of Houston. The property includes like a range of amenities with the management office on the first floor and with other levels that are reserved for apartment units, micro apartment units. What we're gonna discuss in here is the risk mitigation, like value engineering, contract delivery, and self-performed uh, aspect on this project. So the challenges in here, how we dealt with these challenges that we discussed previously on this project, which mainly is to keep the costs under control, is to uh, mitigate risk. So every project is when you work on a project, you set the budget and then you do like a schedule of values for every division. The construction industry has multiple divisions. I guess there are 50 something divisions, and every division will allocate a budget for it. Now, one way to do risk mitigation is to hire qualified uh, companies, subcontractors for specialty trades, and lock the price with them, and then basically this way you are mitigating the risk on the cost fluctuation to your qualified subcontractors. And especially we do that with the specialty divisions, like mechanical or electrical or so on. Another way to also maintain the budget is basically and go around the price increases is value engineering. On this in here, I want to go back to that example I mentioned to you earlier. We had a challenge with mechanical, the HVAC, heating and ventilating. We were going over budget, especially with the new material prices, and then basically we worked together with our subcontractors. So what we had to do is these units, every micro unit has one AC unit that sits and further down in that space and above the restroom. To do that, we have to construct the main ceiling first, and then you have to pass your inspection, do the fire enclosure, and then construct your further down, put the units, and then close it again. So kind of like we felt we can eliminate some time, or we can save a lot of time by eliminating this type of unit and then working with our supplier. And then on that project, our vendor or supplier was Carrier. So we kind of like thought out of the box, how can we use a different system that cuts time, and then we can save money. So instead of going into ceiling units, we went to something called wall type units. So it's an AC unit that sits in the wall. We did some changes in the design, minor changes. We fit that AC unit in the wall. It's already have the return air attached to it, so there's no ducting needed there. And then we eliminated all the fur downs in the unit. So we achieved basically the cooling that space and at the least cost possible. And then there's no sacrifice, or there's no inequality or any efficiency of these units.
Nice.
Also, contract delivery, which we talked about, is design build. Our contract delivery on this project is design build, which gave us the flexibility to anytime we face a challenge, to go back to the office and say, okay, we have a challenge in this area right here. How can we overcome this challenge? And what do we need to do? So we work together with the office and then have immediate response. And then if there is a need to change, they're immediately changed at no cost to the client, because this is all part of our contract as a design build contract. Also, another thing to face these challenges, especially with the labor shortage, is to acquire or like hire direct labor under CIVE, train them, and then we worked with our vendors on training programs for our labor to learn on those specialty trades. And then we did like incentive bonuses to basically keep these people on board and manage to keep that labor force employed with CIVE and continue from one project to another.
Hashim, let's talk about a couple of those things that you mentioned here. All right. First and foremost was the contract delivery. So could you kind of go into the details of your contract for this particular asset? And I know a number of our investors who are actually on the webinar right now. We're asking questions with relation to what a guaranteed max contract is and what the ramifications are for the developer as well as the GC in those. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about the differences there, and in very layman terms, if you can kind of describe the differences between the contracts and what their implications are?
For this particular project, the contract is design build project with a guaranteed max. Guaranteed max is basically this is the limit of the contract amount. It should not exceed, for example, X amount of dollars. And then you have to design and build it within this maximum amount. Now, whether we have a maximum or not have a maximum, because and what we use is the typical AIA contracts. And the AIA contracts, they state in there if there is any material fluctuation over a certain percentage, you can always go back to your client and there will be some cost increase or something like that. But this is our goal is always to stay within the budget or under the budget, and then we have obligation and responsibility towards our clients and developers is to keep the cost and budget under control. That's why we feel obligated to go back to our office and exercise every value engineering possibility on that project. And then the example I gave you was one of many that we went through. For example, I give you another example. Keep in mind this project is 245 units. So if you save $1,000 on one unit, you're saving $245,000 on the entire project. So one other example is showers. Instead of tiling around the shower, so we found that it's more efficient and effective, and then less cost is to go with shower enclosures. A shower that is basically ready with the shower walls, shower base, and a shower door. So that saved a lot of money and time. So basically, rather than going and installing tiles, waterproofing, put the shower base, waterproofing, and then put the tiles, then have another contractor to come and do the door. Well, you have one stop shop is to buy the entire shower enclosure and all install it. It comes waterproofed and basically uh, at less cost and a lot faster. So those savings, if it's a $500 per unit on one item, then another $1,000 another item, this is a lot of saving on a this magnitude project.
Yeah. All right. Excellent.
Answer
Thank
your
you.
question, or do I need to elaborate more on that?
So one of the questions that actually just came into the chat, Hashim, for you was, okay, let's say the GMP contract, the guaranteed max price that you've essentially agreed to. Let's say the cost of the project was to go higher than that. Who is eating the higher cost of construction in that situation? Is it the contractor or the developer?
It's the contractor. If it's a contractor calculated the budget on that project, and it depends also on the type of the contract and then if what kind of provisions you have in the contract. If there is a provision in the contract for material price increase, like I stated a few minutes ago, then the contractor and the client will sit down and have to discuss that. But if there is no provision for material increase, the contractor is the one who is responsible for that.
Okay, so you're on the hook then when it comes to so whatever price that you're guaranteeing to, you better hope that you put in enough contingency in there that can mitigate any of those increased costs in construction.
Exactly. This is another. It's a science by itself. Risk management and risk assessment. This is a science by itself. And then, unfortunately, right now the fluctuation in the market, there's nobody can predict or come up with an algorithm for that change in the market. It's changing on a daily basis. But we're hoping after this stabilizes in between now and in July, things will be more predictable because only every project we have to basically do a risk assessment for price increases or whatever it may come during the phase of the construction. So we do allocate contingency for every project, which will be basically built in our cost to mitigate that risk. And then, like I said in that first bullet point right here, it says risk mitigation. One of these risk mitigation ways is to, let's say, you hire professional, qualified subcontractors, and then mitigate that risk to them by locking that price, for example, with them and signing the same type of contract with them. Let's say on, um, I don't know, like the most complicated thing could be on a project. Let's say, for example, is plumbing, for example. So you sign that contract and with a reputable plumbing subcontractor, licensed subcontractor, and you lock the price, you sign the same type of contract with them that mitigate the risk to them. One of the things in the past that we were also doing on a if we go back to the framing and lumber, what we've done before this price wars and price increases and all that thing goes on, there's a lot of what happens, a lot of waste on site. So one of the ways to mitigate that risk and have to go over the budget on material cost is to sign uh, um, labor and material with the framing contractor. So that risk of going over the budget on material costs, you mitigated that to them. And then you will see a different way how they deal with that lumber. They treat it with love, trust me. And they want to make sure they don't waste an inch of it. So there's always ways of basically mitigation of risk when it comes of construction management.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Hashim. I mean, those are great points, and I think those are excellent tips on being able to kind of reduce your risk as from the GC standpoint. You know, one of the things that you touched upon was your last bullet point here was just talking about how you self-perform some of these tasks. Now, not only is that a way to cut down on overhead and cost. I mean, we have bid out projects where the GC who is primarily self-performing the task has come in significantly lower than the competition. And so they've been able to kind of win those projects. But even from the standpoint of being able to, mitigate risk, if you're self-performing those tasks and you have more control of the project and you have the ability to kind of, mix and match and be able to increase here and decrease there. And then ultimately, since you're self-performing, you have enough of a reserve, in there in your budget to be able to, still deliver the project. Is that correct?
Yes, and then but also self-performing is a big responsibility, and then you have to be careful when you're self-performing, and you need to have the proper training to deliver the same quality across the board on all basically divisions. So yes, we do self-perform. We select divisions that we like to self-perform. We don't cross, like let's say we have our labor that trained to do framing. We don't take those framers from framing and put them in plumbing.
Sure.
So uh, and then also the risk is basically be, yes, you have a better supervision because you are under control of what these people are doing. You have maybe better quality control, but also, like I said, it comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of liabilities. But this is a challenge, and we found ourselves because of the labor shortage, and then to also one of the points that you said, we are able to control our price and better compete in this very competitive market. So by self-performing allowed us to maybe underbid other contractors.
Yeah. Great point.
But
Great.
it's not as easy as it's said. It's a lot of liability. You're dealing with lot of people with different backgrounds and different experiences, and you provide a lot of training, and then you have to have the right supervision. And then we have developed a lot of training programs with AGC. I don't know if you're familiar with AGC, so we've done a lot of training with them.
Oh, can you tell our viewers what AGC is?
American Associated General Contractors of America.
Okay.
Associated General Contractors of America, yes. And then also a lot of training with our vendors, the specialty vendors. So if there is a special product, let's say 2 weeks ago, we had training here in the office from a company called Equitone. This is a new material that we are presenting to our clients, and then we are using on this particular building right here. So we had reps from Equitone to come to Houston and to train our labor on installation. So these kind of programs that we always go after, because we want our labor force to have the proper training to get the best outcome and best quality.
Excellent.
Hashim, understanding the reality that it's impossible to predict and mitigate every single form of risk that's out there. I mean, your approach provides a very compelling message here. I mean, I think what you're saying is big picture competence and experience lead to greater efficiency, which in turn leads to lower costs and greater profits in the end. I think that's a very compelling message.
And then also another trend right now, there's basically there's a lot of new trends in the construction industry. For example, lumber price is high. A lot of people are going to light gauge steel. And we are currently looking into making a big investment in state-of-the-art equipment for light gauge steel fabrication. So basically what happens is you make prefabricated wall panels. You fabricate those offsite in your facility, and you ship them to the site fabricated. So that makes the project go a lot faster. We cut a lot of the time. All the fabrication and framing, everything is done offsite. You just assemble on site. This is a new niche market, and there's a lot of demand for this market right now. And then we
Yeah.
are.
And Hashim, as you know, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, as you know, we're kind of going through that exact process right now with one of our projects, and really it was kind of comparing between the two in terms of using lumber as compared to a light gauge steel, and obviously we're looking like geniuses now that we made this decision early on, because now with the cost of lumber having gone up exponentially, going this route which you're talking about actually makes complete financial sense.
And the lifespan of the building itself increases. Well, if you go with lumber versus steel is, they say it's like if it's done right, it's 1,000 years.
Not only from an insurance standpoint as well. I mean, those are longer lasting structures. So from a perspective of being more wind resistant and being a more insurable product, there's the benefits from that as well.
Absolutely.
So Hashim, one of the questions that came in from Timothy was, before we leave that last slide with regards to student housing, he was asking what the typical cost per unit is on a student housing project, and then if you could compare that to a typical cost per unit on a new multifamily project, and you can answer that question as you kind of go through and explaining these next slides.
I pulled my calculator because I don't know exactly per unit, but I can do that right now. These are micro for the student housing. It's micro units. So it's completely different design. It's like one big room. You have just one restroom. You have one wall that has a little cooked up. There's no oven in there. There's a tiny dishwasher and a tiny microwave. So it's completely different than multifamily. The price per unit is a lot less than what it is for multifamily unit. A multifamily unit has multiple rooms, so basically, no matter what you try to do with value engineering with AC, you still have to run ducts. You still have to basically ventilate all different rooms. Uh, the project that I showed you on a previous slide, no balconies, so it's completely different. It's not comparable and then also the main cost of the project, which is the site works and the infrastructure of the project, gets divided into multiple units. For example, this project right now that I have on this slide, it's a project that we have under construction. It's 142 units near Hobby Airport. It's 142 units, but has the same square footage as the 245 micro units. So the cost of the infrastructure and the cost of development is divided by 142 versus over there is divided by 245.
Good point.
But if any of the investors want to ask specific questions on cost or for the micro units, they can at the end I can provide my contact information and they can send me an email or call me on my cell.
Absolutely. And we had another question that came in that was talking about, are you able to shorten the timeline? Is there an advantage in terms of the development timeline because you're taking a design build approach?
Yes, absolutely. Uh, One of the approaches that we do is we divide the one in the design phase. We design the product into two phases in design. You have site works and you have building, basically permit. We are able to get the site work permit approved a lot faster than the building permit. While the building is under review with the permitting officials, we can start the site work and then the building permit comes and then you go on with your construction. So basically, that crunches the schedule. uh, Also, when you have multiple stakeholders on this project, let's say architect and engineers and then contractors, if there's an issue rises that you have to communicate with all stakeholders, and it takes a lot of time to communicate and then get answers back. And if there is any changes that need to happen, that will take a longer period of time because any change is associated with new drawings, associated with a new cost, approvals, and so on. When it's design build, all that time is cut. It's not there.
Wonderful.
So this project right here is 142 units, like I said. Has a leasing office and some amenities, and right now it's under construction in the last phases. Total 6 buildings. We have 2 buildings ready, already handed to the client, and then they have tenants moving in on Friday, which is after tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, one of the challenges on this, we were super lucky that we have acquired and purchased a lot of our material before this price increase. That was in the very beginning of the pandemic, so we were very lucky to basically get and procure most of our material. And then let me add one other thing on what we try also to do with value engineering and to go out of uh, our way to maintain budget and stay competitive in the market. We have started our own procurement company, and then we know most of material throughout the globe. They come from one side of the globe. It's basically Far East, whether it's China or whether it's Vietnam or uh, uh, anywhere in India or anywhere in the world. So we have started our own procurement office in Free Zone in Dubai. So it's kind of like our hub. Every project we send them the drawings, they uh, prepare procurement packages, and then they get us prices on material. Which what we try to do is to cut as supplier and or the middle guy between the the manufacturing and the end user. So basically, we cut by cutting that middle guy, we save a lot of money and we pass on that savings to our clients. That keeps us competitive and during this crazy time to keep the prices under control. I mean, I know now material prices overseas maybe is less than here, but also another challenge that we faced lately was shipping cost. container shipping containers, especially after the what happened in Egypt. What is it called? The canal.
Suez
Uh,
Canal.
yeah, Suez Canal. Uh, there we faced a lot of shortages in containers. We couldn't find, but there are always some challenges. But you always have to work your ways. Construction is not easy. Uh, there always are some challenges, but you have to be creative and okay, what can we do? There are some rules here in Houston. For example, you cannot get over 21.5 tons on the road or 19.5 tons on the road. So you have to load your containers less than that. But lately, because there's shortages, so we were overloading our containers over the maximum weight, but uh, we kind of offload the material from the containers into flatbeds at the port, and then have the legal weight on the trucks and ship it to the site. So this is not stopping. This is never ending. There are always some ways to. There are always some challenges, and you have to always think out of the box.
Excellent.
Uh, so, like I said, mentioned before, also these slides. They kind of like describe or like summarizes what I talked about before, which is training and development, vendor registrations, and budget reallocation. So if we manage to get one item under budget, so we reallocate that extra or that remaining dollar figure in that budget to some other items that is going over budget. So there's always that fluctuation throughout the project, and then also the self-performing to keep the cost low. Now, after we talked and summarized everything about the challenges, there are always extra challenges that come, but uh, uh, we came across, or I talked about the most challenges that always occur on every project. Now I want to talk about the trends driving architecture and multifamily construction. So I want to go into the design side of our business. What happened in the last year in 2020, uh, we'll never forget about that. It played a big role in the history of mankind. It changed so many things, and I believe as we right now like go back, as we say, to normal, I don't think there will be the same normal as before. This will be a new normal, and then we have to adapt to or adapt to these new changes and then new normals, especially in our design. A lot of companies, as you know, they let their employees work from home, and they found a lot of efficiency and a lot of productivity in that. So they're encouraging their employees to stay working from home. Some companies they want their employees back in the office, but you have to accommodate those people who are gonna work from home. So you have to create that flexibility space for these people who want to work from home. You have to think about the improved air quality of these people working from home and spending a lot of time now at home than outside of the house or their apartment. Uh, Advanced technology, what's their needs as far as basically advanced technology, meaning uh, high speed internet, be able to provide high speed internet in your developments. Uh, think of sustainable designs, mobility, and also affordability. Because people still, like you said in the beginning of this presentation, uh, Class B is basically the hot development that's going on right now, and people don't want to spend too much money for the Class A apartments. They want to, the majority, they want to stay with that Class B, but they want those extra amenities that you provide to them, or not necessarily amenities, but the flexibility in their apartment, whether it's a little extra space that you can carve out of the bedroom or in the kitchen or for a working space. They want to feel like okay, they can sit down and work and not like work at a coffee table or dining table.
Sure.
So there's a demand for units with built-in desks or convenient area to work from. Alternate dining and bar area separate from kitchen. Some people like to work on a bar that could be their desk, or maybe, like I said, you can carve an area out of the living room or out of their bedroom to make it like their workspace, or create another area for like a little den or little study. Um, Being at home all the time, there's a demand for like people they order food, order packages. So there is a demand right now that we are seeing. We're currently working on a project that's still in design phase, and then we are requested to have delivery lockers for Amazon. Delivery instead of uh, uh, food delivery going to every unit, delivery rooms for people to come down and pick up their food. Um, Also, design or provide come up with a better design for social distancing, especially in high density gathering areas like the clubhouse. More open area, uh, more outside than inside, or if you have inside spaces to design it in a way to have people practice social distancing or have distance between different groups. Uh, like clubhouses with smaller separate rooms, for example, and then open air common areas. Um, and then people they like to what we're creating is also like a 3D tours for virtual leasing. That packages that we provide is within our design to design uh, uh, one type of apartment, have it virtually furnished or staged, with and adding a 3D virtual tour for that unit. So people who wants to rent, they can go online rather than going and then touring apartments and being exposed and being outside. We're seeing a
Yeah.
lot of
Great point, Asher. Great point. And I mean, even with us from a design perspective, once COVID hit, we really had to kind of go back to the drawing table and see how we can modify our current design in order to complement a post COVID world, right? And so, for example, we have a project in the Dallas area that we're about to break ground on for construction. And this is a project that's called the Spot at Myra Park, and it's a 250 unit project that's directly adjacent to the Dallas Medical Center. So in this project, were we had acquired the project and started putting the plan together during the pandemic, and we challenged our design team to be able to come up with efficiencies that could respond to and complement the fact that we're living in this kind of post-COVID era. And one of the things they had come back with, so for example, and this is kind of what you were talking about as well. For example, we had 54 of the units that had double balconies. So they had a balcony in the master bedroom and they had a balcony in the main living room as well. But understanding that in this environment, people are more likely to work from home, we opted to change the balcony that's in the master bedroom and instead made it kind of like an office cove that allows you to be able to work and still have the view of the city and the freeway and all those additional benefits. So from our standpoint, not only were we kind of responding to the COVID issue, but from a cost perspective, we found that removing the balconies from those 54 units ended up saving us right around $6,000 per unit. So from a cost perspective, we were able to decrease our overall costs while at the same time saying that we're doing our part to respond to the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. So uh, there's a lot of new trends right now in architectural design for multifamily because we have to like you said, we have to accommodate to this new post-COVID life.
Exactly.
A lot of things are changing, and we cannot stay still and then stay inside that box of thinking pre-COVID.
Sure. And to your point, I mean, 3D tours, all of this is a requirement now. It used to be kind of a added benefit that people use, but now it's more so of a requirement that you have to have in your property in order to get at least done.
Absolutely. So, hold on. We're coming to the end right now of my presentation. So I just made a summary for multifamily benefits, and then what's the new generation, what they look for. So the millennials right now choose to rent because of their lifestyle preferences. Uh, Myself, I'm Generation X, and then completely different thinking. The new generation right now, they're trying to rent. They like renting versus owning, and then have that responsibility of lawn mowing maybe, or maintaining a house that takes a lot of work. And then walkable spaces on both urban and suburban properties. So basically creating a lot of walkable spaces, green spaces within the community or multifamily development that you're working on. And then further cap rate or compression for also existing assets as benefits of multifamily development. Design build contract. Let me go back to that because this is what we really do. And I want to stress on the benefits of that. It's a single point of contact, better average construction cost, and efficient use of time. We discussed every single point of these in details before, but in the summary, I want to go back to it and the benefit and list the benefits or the main benefits of the design build construction contract. And we come to the end of my presentation. Any questions? I'll be more than happy to answer.
Excellent. Thank you, Hashim, so much. We really appreciate your time. And I know we're running a little bit over time right now, but we have a number of questions that are in the chat box. And I mean, the good news is that not a single person has dropped off so far. So it means that our conversation is engaging, right? So that's good news there. So a couple of questions that came in, Hashim. You know, one of the questions that came in is, what do you see as the main construction risk for a developer? And from your perspective, what is your recommendations on how we as developers can mitigate that risk?
The construction risk is always to, if you are a developer and then you're hiring just a construction company on just for a general contractor, not a design build, just basically construction contract. The risk is always to have the right contractor work for you and make sure that they are working for the best or the benefit of the project and the developers. Mitigating the risk is the type of contract that you do with the contractor. There's different ways of or different contract forms that you can enter with a construction company. You have or different delivery methods on, or let's say on a contract. So you have a lump sum contract, or you have a cost plus guaranteed maximum. You have a cost plus without a guaranteed maximum. So all these contracts, you have that risk in the middle, and then you're shifting it left and right between client and contractor. So it depends on the type of the project and the complexity of the project, or the amount of details or planning. What I always say, one should spend more time planning than executing. So if you have a proper planning done, this is by itself mitigates a lot of the risk. plus the type of the contract that you enter with your contractor also can mitigate the remaining risk. So if you enter a lump sum contract, that risk is shifted all to the contractor. If you have a cost plus with no guaranteed maximum, you're taking the entire risk. Does that answer?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. The next question we had, Hashim, was for you regarding the greatest challenge or mistake that you have made as a GC, and what did you learn from that?
The biggest challenge is, again, similar to what I said before, is to hire the right subcontractors always. And then what we have learned from our mistakes is now we have a very rigorous pre-qualification uh, uh, procedure for every subcontractor that comes and work with us. And then we have implemented, and then we have been certified as ISO. So, and we created a quality management program, and we got our ISO certificate. And then we put everything, like all our procedures, we created procedures manuals for everything. So we have standards for every uh, 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 side of our, basically, or our, for the general of our business, for our procurement, for our procurement of material, procurement of contracts, subcontractors. And then from that procedure, we create, like I said, the rigorous pre-qualification program. So to work with us as a subcontractor, you have to go through the pre-qualifications procedure that we have, get you approved, and then basically get you the chance to bid on our project. That was one of the biggest challenges that we faced through our basic 17 years of experience in this market right now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hashim. We had 3 questions that were related to the cost per project, and I know that's a difficult question to answer simply because there's so many variables that exist within these projects, whether it's the site or the type of construction. But we had literally 3 questions from different investors that were talking about the cost per square foot and general per unit cost. And again, I understand that it's hard to hold you to that because there's so many variables involved. How would you answer that question just to kind of give us an idea? And I know you said earlier that our investors are free to, of course, contact you directly about their particular projects, but just kind of wanted to give a blanket statement in terms of what you think are the biggest kind of factors that make up these costs.
What make up the big factors that make up this cost is material costs right now. On the last project that we uh, worked on, I can say we're like per. It's a Class B apartment complex. Per door was about almost $90,000, I would say, per door.
And that includes the land, Hashim, or just the material and
Just the building.
okay, just the building.
Yeah, site and the building. It could be a little less than that. It could be more. It depends on what type of finishes and what type of amenities. And then we have worked on a projects that we have cost per square foot is $147 per square foot. So you can go anywhere from 100 to 150 depending on the amenities, depending on the site itself, and depending on uh, garden style, podium style, and you go vertical or you go horizontal.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely understand that answer, and I think
If
those are very competitive prices.
Yeah, if any one of the investors have like a specific question or a specific piece of property that they want us to look at, and then help them see how many create a layout and how many units they can fit on that, and what is like a budgetary number, I'll be more than happy to assist with that.
Fantastic. Well, Hashim, I know we're way over time here, and I just want to thank you for joining us today and to kind of
Thank you
giving
for
us
having me.
your experience. Yes, and I was looking at a specific couple of things in terms of the metro populations in the fastest growing kind of multifamily markets. And in all of those, I mean, it seems like the share of new residential spending that's going on, has increased all across the board, right? In all 25 of the largest metros, and in some cases, very, very dramatically. Just for example, in San Diego, multifamily housing accounted for right under 20% of spending on new residential construction in 2000, which had gone up by 60% since 2016. So again, there's just a lot of stuff that's happening here, and clearly because of the retail market and the office market kind of being in flux. Obviously with retail going towards digital, with office now people realizing that they can work remotely. It seems that both of those asset classes are kind of going through, some type of correction. Whereas, the multifamily asset class and particularly the industrial asset class have really remained resilient through this pandemic. And from all indications that what we're looking at in terms of the data, it continues, to progress towards this same type of trend. So once again, Hashim, thank you from my end. Mas, I'll let you close it out for us. And Hashim, just again, once again, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Dr. Moss.
Thank you, everybody. Sahel, I think you can tell when it's been a great webinar when you're wondering where all the time went. And, we could keep talking like this for easily another hour or two. But I wanted to thank everybody in our audience, a wonderful audience, for their insightful questions. Special thanks to you, Hashim, for being here today and to help us better understand how we as investors and developers can maximize returns in our construction projects. Once again, we appreciate you all for taking the time to join us. And on behalf of Market Space Capital, we thank you and we wish you a very good evening.
Good night. Thank you.